The sky is full of dark clouds. Thunder is rolling. The heavy rain is pouring down. The entire Xiaoyun temple seems to be obscured by the rain curtain, becoming blurred. In the Great Hall of Heroes, the light is slightly dim. The huge Buddha, sitting upright, looking down compassionately. The surrounding candles flickered. The little novice wrapped the wooden fish. The low and deep thumping sound, very regular, seemed to cover up the wind, rain, and thunder outside. On the futon, a young man was kneeling. Brocade white robe, delicate face. But when he looked closely, he found that there was blackness around his eyes. The lips are also blue. There was a heavy dead air from all over his body. He is the eldest of the Li family in Qinghe County. Li Wu has suffered from sepsis for many years. I have sought numerous famous doctors, but there is still no cure. Fate is coming soon. Li Wu stands on his chest with his left hand, and holds a Buddhist bead in his right hand. Lips wriggle. Silently recite the Buddhist scriptures. A string of Buddhist beads slowly turned between his thumbs. His complexion is unusually calm. It seems that such things as terminally ill did not happen to him. Amitabha. Behind the hall, an old monk wearing a golden robe came out. Slightly hunched back. The face is covered with wrinkles. Old and very old, but respected and respected. This is the abbot of Xiaoyun Temple. Yunzi. Li Wu is the most pious pilgrim of Xiaoyun Temple. Dakshang Hall, the Buddha's golden body, and even the Dujing Pavilion in the back mountain were all repaired by Li Wu. He dared not help. After a while, Li Wu's chanting ends. Stood up. Heavy rains and mountain roads are difficult, but Li Shizue still drags his sick body to come to serve the Buddha. His piety is deeply moving. Abbot Yunzi stepped forward slowly, putting his hands together. The Buddha will surely bless donor Li and live a long life. He knows Li Wu's heart not. The latter has been searching for doctors and medicines for so many years, asking God to worship Buddha, just wanting to live a few more years. So, he knows what to say. Let the latter pay more for incense. Xia Yunzi Abbot Ji Yan. But today's Li Wu, after hearing these words, still looks calm. There is no expectation like before. After a pause, Li Wu said in a hoarse voice. Master Yunzi, Li has something, would you like to ask your questions? Don't hesitate to ask Li, the poor monk knows everything and speaks endlessly. Yunzi looks sincere. Li Wu turned around, raised his head, and looked at the golden Buddha statue. Was silent for a while, then suddenly smiled. Asked, the master kept saying that the Buddha can bless Li to live a long life, do you believe it yourself? Amitabha. Yunzi's face was stiff. This question is really sharp. But he is an abbot after all, with good concentration, quickly recovered his calm, explained, as long as Li Shizue is pious enough, the Buddha will definitely hear your wish. Master Yunzi, your answer is not what you asked. Li Wu narrowed his eyes. Although his complexion was still calm, a cold edge suddenly spread on his body. The question I asked is not whether the Buddha can hear it, but, Master, do you believe it or not? Donor Li. Yunzi's face was pale when he was pressed by the latter's aura, and he couldn't help taking 2 steps back. Speechless. Master Yunzi, don't you believe it? Li Wu raised the corner of his mouth. The mockery in the smile is clearly visible. Yunzi wondered why Li Wu, who has always been gentle and elegant, suddenly became like this. But he didn't want to miss this big pilgrim. Take a few deep breaths, press down the fear in my heart, then put his hands together, and said solemnly, poor monks believe. The Buddha reaches the sky, overlooking all beings, what all beings want. His words stopped abruptly. Because Li Wu took a dagger out of his arms and pierced it directly into his heart. Blood spurted out. Dyed the golden robe red, and dyed the futon red. Dyed Li Wu's white shirt even more. you. Abbot Yunzi didn't expect that Li Wuyu would suddenly kill himself. His eyes widened and his face quickly covered with horror. Master Yunzi has served the Buddha for many years, so he should be pious enough. Li Wuyu patted Yunzi on the shoulder lightly and smiled. Let me see, Buddha, how to bless you for a long life. After speaking, Li Wuyu drew out his dagger. Yunzi staggered and withdrew, knelt under the statue of Buddha with a thump. The blood spread quickly. Looks like a red flower in full bloom. What? The little novice monk found the horror here and screamed. Then throw away the wooden fish. Panicked and fled towards the Dakshang hall. The dagger flew out of Li Wuyu's hand, and it accurately pierced the young novice monk's back. Yin red blooms. He fell on the doorstep. The blood, washed away by the raindrops running down the eaves, spread downward. Li Wuyu. Are you crazy, crazy? Yunzi hasn't died completely yet, he clutches his heart, his voice is terrified. I just want to see, Buddha, can I really bless the Master, and you, 100 Buddhist disciples in Xiaoyun Temple? Li Wuyu walked to the little novice monk and pulled down the dagger. Then, I walked into the rain curtain like this. Boom! On the 9-day sky, lightning raged like a silver snake, shaking the entire Xiaoyun Temple trembling. The two little monks seemed to hear the shouts of the Dakshang hall. Ran over curiously. As soon as they were about to salute Li Wuyu, they were wiped off their necks. Then, he fell into the muddy water in horror. The blood spread in the rain. They held their necks, their bodies twitched violently, and their faces were desperate and puzzled. What happened? No. Li Wuyu. Master Yunzi stared at the killing under the rain curtain. The despair and fear on his face became more intense. He turned around with difficulty, reached out and grabbed the feet of the Buddha statue, begging, Buddha, please, help them. Buddha. The golden light Buddha was indifferent. What? Yunzi was so distraught, he spouted a mouthful of blood. Then, he died of anger. 2 handprints were left on the Buddha's body. About half an hour. Li Wuyu's figure, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com reappeared in the Dakshang hall. His clothes are all wet. Clings to the body tightly. Intense red, flowing along the hem. Every step taken leaves a red footprint. He crossed Yunzi's body and came under the Buddha statue. He stood staring at the statue for a moment, then turned pale, and spouted a mouthful of blood. She is terminally ill, so she takes action. Made the little vitality left in his body, passing by more quickly. Hair, slowly graying. There are also more wrinkles in the skin. But in his eyes, there is no fear, but a kind of almost crazy coldness. You can't even bless your followers. Not to mention me. Then what use is there if I beg you to worship you? Li Wuyu's voice is sharp. The face is like a devil. Boom! With fierce energy, the dagger slashed on the foundation under the Buddha statue. Sawdust is flying. Crunch! The Buddha statue shook, then slowly fell down. Boom! It hit the ground, crushing Yunzi's body into mud. Blood spattered. And it itself is directly shattered into countless pieces. Mess all over the floor. Buddha's head rolled to the door. In his pupils, I don't know whether it is tears or rain splashing in. Flows slowly. Soon after, Xiaoyun Temple, the flames soared. In the endless flames, Li Wuyu walked down the mountain and sneered. Since gods and Buddhas are useless, then I will come personally and demand my life from heaven. King He Li's house. In the 3 years when Li Wuyu became the master of the house, he has worked hard and blossomed in all directions. Today, the Li family is the leading wealthy family in the county. 3 Out Deep House Compound. Occupies the most prosperous and wealthy position in Qinghe County. Is hundreds of feet long. Inside the house, there are pavilions, terraces and pavilions, with gold carvings and jade masonry, and gardens full of gardens. All kinds of exotic flowers and grasses are like spring. Some people even rumored that this place is not worse than the imperial garden. And the servants, the nurses, are even more crowded. But, so many people. No one knew that Li Wuyu braved the heavy rain to go to Xiaoyun Temple and killed 100 monks like a lunatic. People think that he is cultivating as usual. Li Wuyu quietly returned to his residence. Then, he entered the underground secret room that he had spent a lot of money to build. Sanshang see each other. Is surrounded by copper walls and iron walls. A white jade bed in the middle. Beside the bed, there is a box covered with red silk cloth. Everything is well prepared, you can start. Li Wuyu gently touched the red silk cloth, his pale face flashed hot. In the box, he spent a year and a half refining the pill. Pill of destruction. Li Wuyu has been thinking of a way since he learned of his life soon. Pray for God to worship Buddha, seek medical advice and medicine. He has used all the methods he can use. But to no avail. He can feel his own vitality, which is passing quickly. Li Wuyu is very unwilling. Why is it that I am so talented, but I can only live for only 20 years? And those mediocre, stupid and dull people can live for 60 to 70 years? So, he wants to change his fate. 2 years ago, Li Wuyu bought a strange jade slip from the tomb thief. Above, records the magic of the ancient times. With his own soul, occupy the body of others, and exist in another way. This sounds like a fantasy. But desperate people will always grab any straw that can save lives at all costs. Li Wuyu believed it. And began secretly preparing. Within 1.5 years, he gathered all kinds of rare herbs to refine the pill of the soul. Today, I went to Xiaoyun Temple again. Killed 100 Buddhist disciples, and made up 100 drops of effort. Ready. Putting the box into his arms, Li Wuyu walked out of the secret room. The copper unicorn sat next to the rotating desk. As the gears rubbed quietly, the door of the chamber closed tightly. Li Wuyu walked to the front hall and told the outside, "Let Li Xingyun come over and see me." Li Xingyun is a cousin of Li Wuyu. From the day when Li Wuyu decided to win, he was looking for a substitute at the same time. Stand-in must meet at least 2 conditions. First of all, the soul. The soul of a substitute can't be too strong, that is, it can't be too smart. Otherwise, you won't be able to win the game, and you will be easily beaten back. Is the flesh next? The physical body of the stand-in, the martial arts talent is okay. Li Wuyu didn't want to spend so much thought, and was a waste. Hard work pays off. Li Wuyu found Li Xingyun with bones and blood from the sideline of the Li family. Bone blood is a special kind of blood passed down in the rivers and lakes. It contains strange energy. Can naturally temper the body. People with bones and blood, bones, muscles, skin, etc., are much tougher than ordinary people. After being injured, he recovered very quickly. In addition, the strength is huge, and the upper limit of growth is about 5 times higher than that of ordinary people. Is the most suitable for practicing foreign kung fu. Generally, people with bones and blood can become innate masters outside the home. If the exercise is suitable, it can even break through the congenital dzogchen. The same realm is almost invincible. Li Xingyun meets both requirements. So, Li Wuyu secretly arranged to create opportunities for him. In less than 2 years, the latter became famous in the Li family and became the appointed successor. Of course, Li Wuyu's identity as his successor is also for himself. In this way, after being stunned, he can still control the Li family in a fair way. Yes. Outside of Li Wuyu's house, there are special people waiting for him, day and night. Hearing the order, the man immediately trot out to spread the news. It will start soon. Prepare first. Listening to the sound of footsteps outside, Li Wuyu took out the pill of destruction, and his painstaking effort. The pill is milky white. The strong medicinal fragrance instantly filled the room. At the position close to the pill, even a little substantive mist was formed. Very mysterious. Tick. Li Wuyu slowly dripped 100 drops of effort on the pill of the soul. A halo erupted from the pill, and then the blood was quickly absorbed. Milky white is covered. The elixir turns red. At the same time, there are some flame-like lines on its surface. Using blood as a guide is a necessary process for taking the pill. In this way, its efficacy can be maximized. Hey! Li Wuyu felt the enthusiasm from the pill, and looked forward to it. Success or failure, in one fell swoop. If is successful, oneself will not die. If you fail, you will disappear in this world forever. I control my own life. Li Wuyu muttered to himself, and put the dupaodon directly into his mouth. Boom! The powerful and rich medicinal power, like opening a gate to discharge flood, quickly spread between the chest and abdomen. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of bones filled his body. What? In the next instant, Li Wuyu stiffened suddenly, and his face became distorted because of the intense pain. He felt that something was forcibly stripping his soul from the muscles, bones, meridians and so on. His body began to shrink. The black hair on his head turned completely into white hair. The skin is wrinkled and covered with bones. His eye circles are darker. The whites of his eyes became muddy. And there is a little heat from the center of his eyebrows. Even bulged up. Because all the spirits are gathered there, there is a sign of breaking out. Ready. Li Wuyu gritted his teeth, holding back all the pain, and then, barely controlling the almost abolished body, leaned on the couch. Next, I was waiting for Li Xingyun to arrive. Li's front yard. On the wide martial arts field surrounded by blooming flowers, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has a burly figure, dancing a long sword. He has a rough face. Brows and eyes are as fierce as a beast. The muscles on his body exude the power of a King Kong through his clothes. Is like a moving hill. The knife, in his hand, transforms light and shadow, and when it smashes into the air, it can make a whining sound of breaking wind. Is really extraordinary. This person is Li Xingyun. The early days of the day after tomorrow. Heir to the next patriarch of the Li family. Master Yun, the master wants you to go over. A reminder came from the door. The light of the sword in the sky converged, and with a bang, the tip of the knife stuck to the ground. Dust splashes. Li Xingyun turned his head, saw that Ding's face clearly, and asked impatiently. What's the matter? What is the disease going to do? This Ding has been bought by him, and he is responsible for staring at Li Wuyu. Li Xingyun didn't know that everything he got in Li's house now was arranged by Li Wuyu and given to him. He thought that he was very talented and extremely clever. He thought that he was destined. I am the hope of the Li family for the future. Therefore, he has long seen Li Wuyu this stumbling block not pleasing to his eyes. I heard the doctor say yesterday that the head of the house cannot last a few days. Ding knew about Li Wuyu's situation and said flatly with a smile. At this time, I invite young Master Yun, it should be an account of the funeral, and I will give you the position of the head of the family. Real. Li Xingyun looked overjoyed and said with a smile, Great, I have been looking forward to this day for a long time. When I become the owner of the house, I will definitely not be able to treat you badly. Go. Go over and take a look. Li Xing changed his clothes as quickly as possible. Then, I came to the deepest part of Xiwan. In front of the room where Li Wuyu is. Patriarch, Galaxy is here. He knocked on the door lightly, strongly concealing his excitement, and said, What's your order? Come in and talk. Li Wuyu's voice is very soft and tired. This is not a pretend. All the spirits have been concentrated on the center of the eyebrows, and his physical vitality is fading rapidly. The distance is exhausted, and only a few hours are left. Patriarch, you! The door of the house opened with a creak, and Li Xing saw Li Wuyu who was running out of oil. A glimmer of ecstasy flashed in his eyes. Even, swallowed and spit. Then try to pretend to be worried, rushed to the couch and asked nervously, "What's wrong with you? My deadline has come." Li Wuyu's eyebrows were tired, and he whispered, "I came here today to tell you about the Li family's funeral. Patriarch, you are prosperous in the spring and autumn, you will not die, the Li family still needs you, we." Li Xingyun's eyes were red, and he grasped Li Wuyu's wrist, and there was some grief in his voice. "The acting is pretty good." Li Wuyu could see the expectation and excitement deep in Li Xingyun's eyes. He sneered in his heart and said immediately, "Go to the black box under the bed and take out the Patriarch's order." "Yes." Li Xing heard these 3 words, the excitement on his face became more intense, he almost couldn't wait, squatted down, and took out a black box from under the bed. "This is the iron box. There is no lock on it, but there are 9 palaces. Is a rare thing at first glance. Top 3, 4, 2, middle 5, 8, 7, bottom 9, 6 1. Li Wuyu told Li Xing the correct way to open it. At the same time, he raised his right hand without leaving any traces, and his fingers were brought together like a sword. Li Xing's hands were shaking. He was so excited. As long as he gets the Li family patriarch's order, he will truly become the master of the Li family. From now on, Wangwen family wealth, martial arts classics, and panacea can be enjoyed at will. Also, Li Wuyu's wife in the house. Su's blue and white. Can also be just right together. No need to be sneaky. And you are sick, I don't need to look at your face anymore." Li Xing's face turned red. Rapid heartbeat. Soon, he placed the last copper wedge. Click. There was a crisp sound from the iron box, and the lid was loose. Hiss. Li Xing's excited eyes straightened. "This is the Patriarch's order that I dream of. Own future. Open it, from now on, you will be the head of the Li family. Leave it to you." Li Wuyu saw Li Xing's appearance in his eyes, and his disdain in his heart became more intense. This kind of disposition is difficult to achieve. However, it is a good thing for myself. Yes. Thank you, Patriarch. Li Xing didn't notice the change in Li Wuyu's eyes. All his attention was on this iron box. He swallowed and spit, and carefully lifted the lid. Eyes, with scorching heat and happiness, looked inside. In the iron box, a puff of white smoke exploded. This. Li Xing's face changed. The next moment, he only felt that his whole body was stiff, and there was a violent dizziness in his mind. It feels turbulent, unstoppable. In the box, there is Li Wuyu Fang's highest concentration of Ziwixin San. Ordinary people lose consciousness when they smell it. Even if Li Xing is in the early days of the day after tomorrow, he has bones and blood on his body, it can't stop him. Within half a quarter of an hour, he can't move. The spirit is also muddled. Can be stunned. Before Li Xing could react, Li Wuyu's broken body was already flying off the couch. Snapped. He points his right hand with 2 fingers, touching the center of Li Xing's eyebrows. You. Li Xing was in a trance. He forcibly widened his eyes, his pupils were full of horror, and he couldn't believe it. What's the matter? From then on, I am Li Xing. Go to hell. Li Wuyu grinned sneer. The wrinkled corners of the mouth, the shriveled skin, and scarlet eyes, looked like a devil. Boom. Exploring the soul to cast. In his eyebrows, the soul that he wanted to come out a long time ago surged. Wore that white shirt, hunting and dancing in shock. Then, the powerful spirit, like a river wave, arrogant and violent, rushed into Li Xing's mind. You do not. Li Xing felt a sharp pain in his head and was about to explode. At the same time, his consciousness is rapidly weakening. Seems to be erased. The memory is disappearing. The connection with the body is also disappearing. Li Xing's eyes widened, and there was an indescribable fear inside. His mouth grows stiffly and makes a painful whine. He made every effort to retreat and avoid this terrible invasion. But, all is to no avail. Because his spirit is too weak. Besides, I was drunk. Compared with Li Wuyu at this moment, it's like an ephemera shaking a tree. Boom! After a little bit of effort, all the energy tumbling in the room disappeared. Everything returned to calm. Wow! Li Wuyu's broken body was completely burnt out and collapsed to the ground. Li Xing's body stood in place. The shock on his face and the fear in his eyes gradually dissipated. Is replaced by an unfathomable depth. There is also a lot of excitement. It succeeded. Ah! The spirit of Li Wuyu completely occupied Li Xing's body. Although I can't move because of the effect of Ziwixin San, the real sense of control is clearly visible. A healthy, strong body, and the feeling of blood pressure, so comfortable. Li Wuyu rolled his apple. Muttered to himself. He hasn't felt this way for many years. I can start again. As the effect of the medicine gradually dissipated, Li Wuyu licked his lips, and then slowly raised his right hand. Clenched fists. Collisions between the joints, making a crisp sound. Although his strength is still very weak, with his talent and hard work, he will be able to become famous within 3 years. Ha ha! Li Wuyu couldn't bear it anymore, and laughed heartily. Smiled a little. Li Wuyu regained his peace. Then, I started to clean up the mess in the room. Although the soul and body are successful, it will take some time for the soul and the body to blend in. At this time, the strength he can exert is slightly stronger than that of ordinary people. If someone finds out about something terrifying, someone has a wicked intention, and he can't deal with it. So, be sure to remove all traces. Patriarch, please see me in blue and white. He had just cleaned up, and there was a gentle and charming woman's voice from this door. Sue's, blue and white, is the wife of Li Wuyu. However, because of Li Wuyu's body, they barely had a relationship with each other except on the wedding night that year. Later, they basically had no exchanges. This blue and white couldn't bear to be lonely, and secretly hooked up with Li Xing. Put a big green hat on Li Wuyu. This bastard/person. Li Wuyu's eyebrows flashed gloomily. He doesn't like this woman, but he doesn't allow betrayal. Therefore, there has been killing intentions a long time ago. However, now is not the time to kill her. Li Wuyu frowned slightly as he thought of his own situation, and his intent was suppressed. Snorted in my heart, let's play with her first. Extremely longevity. There is such a magical skill between heaven and earth. The vast information finally calmed down, and Li Wuyu looked shocked. Can hardly believe it. Ji-Dao body refining, the first heavy iron bone, the flesh is comparable to the congenital perfection. Longevity refining the soul, the first re-enlightenment, a keen soul, can insight into the flaws in all ordinary martial arts. The double, triple, and so on behind are even more shocking. Among the commonplace, I have never heard of it. To Kunu, it has become a fairy in the legend. Longevity and eternal life. Immortal and immortal. If it were in the past, Li Wuyu would not believe this kind of unreasonable saying. However, after experiencing the dazzling incident, his cognition has changed. Maybe there is such an extraordinary ability. I already lack the foreign exercises for body training, so I might as well try this Ji-Dao Bulletin. If you succeed, you will really have a chance to see through the legendary realm. Li Wuyu's face is hot. Immortal is the realm that everyone dreams of. He has experienced the oppression of death, and he yearns even more for this kind of thing. Even has obsession. Made up his mind, Li Wuyu looked inwardly and studied the ultimate secret method. Extreme Dao exercises are different from ordinary martial arts. 9 levels of realm require 9 different physiques to cultivate and complete. No one can have 9 constitutions at the same time. Therefore, you need to first learn the method of seizing soul. Each level of cultivation requires the physique of a suitable person in order to achieve consummation. With this reciprocation, 9 concrete souls, 9 great achievements. Fang Cheng is immortal. Never, do not have an unmatched physique, practice the extreme Dao department. Otherwise, the soul will be destroyed, and the catastrophe will be lost. Li Wuyu swept across the opening general outline, his expression condensed slightly. No wonder, the beginning of the jade slip is the method of robbing souls. It was originally prepared for this Jidao department. I don't know if Li Xingyun's bone and blood physique can cultivate the first iron bone. Li Wuxian is nervous. Continue to look down. The first iron bone, to cultivate the physique, it must be the mundane middle and high-grade flesh physique. Includes innate divine power, physical vajra, bone and blood, etc. It's great, bone and blood physique, you can practice. Li Wuyu has a happy face. I am quite lucky, and I happen to have prepared the physique for the cultivation of the first iron bone. Next, is the practice method. Jidao Bulletin practice, simple and domineering. First of all, a lot of medicine resources are needed to make the exquisite black blood soup. Then, practice a heavy iron bone body refining move. After each practice, soak in black blood soup to allow the body to absorb the medicinal power and energy. Every time the process is over, the physical strength can increase by 50 catties. After 10 times, in about 20 days, there will be 500 catties of physical strength. Is called the Iron Bone Underworld. Is as complete as the day after tomorrow. It's a martial art that is against the sky. After reading Wu Li, he was horrified. The day after tomorrow is perfect. It takes about 10 years for general martial arts people to practice. Even with the martial arts talents, a large accumulation of resources, and advanced martial arts support, it will take at least 3 years. And this Jidao department only needs 20 days. The final training is the acquired consummation of the physical body. Is invincible by nature. This is even more incredible than the Arabian Nights. Eternal life may not be a legend. The heat in Li Wuyu's eyes is thicker. Can't wait, continue to look down. Black blood soup. Configuration method, main medicine, 100 years of strong blood ginseng, auxiliary medicine, 10 years of wintergreen, 15 years of his. After reading the configuration pharmacy, Li Wuyu took another breath of air conditioning. These herbs are really invaluable. A serving of black blood soup costs at least 5,000 taels of silver. And very black blood soup, you need 50,000 taels. Such a large amount of wealth is enough for an ordinary people's home to live a whole 1,000 years of worry-free life. This is the realm of using silver piles. What does it matter if you can live forever and waste a little bit of money? My Li family can still afford it. Li Wuyu knows how to choose. After a while, he wrote all the herbs he needed on rice paper. Then walked to the door and ordered, "Buy 10 of these herbs and send them to my study. If the accountant wants to ask, just say I want them." Yes. Same as the previous habit, there are always servants waiting at the door. Is the little boy Li Xing bought before? He took the prescription and quickly backed away. Although the herb is expensive, with the current strength of the Li family, it is completely affordable. Li Wuyu is not worried. He began to study a heavy iron bone refining technique. Drink. After a while, in the secret room, there was a low and energetic whistling sound. The iron bone refining moves are very simple. There are only 6 tricks. However, it is extremely difficult to practice. Because the posture of every move is to distort the bones, muscles, tendons, etc. to the point where they are almost shattered. The first move barely finished. Li Wuyu felt that his body was limp, even uncontrollable convulsions. Almost has difficulty even standing. No wonder, you need a special physique to practice. If it's an ordinary body, this first trick will be abolished if you haven't practiced it. Bone and blood physique is only barely able to bear it. Li Wuyu gasped, while secretly surprised. But he will not give up. He understands that it is impossible to be so simple if you want to be truly immortal. Hardship is the only way to go. Only with thousands of hard work, can you get real gold and fiery steel. Continue. Recovered a bit, Li Wuyu started the second practice again. Time flies. In a blink of an eye, 2 days passed. He almost gritted his teeth, with great pain, and completely practiced the 7 moves. At this time, the body is almost scrapped. The water in the tub was steaming hot, and the whole room was full of steam. The black liquid medicine tumbling with boiling water emits a strong fishy smell. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com faintly, you can still see a little red, circulating inside. Seems to be a blood snake swimming. This is the black blood soup prepared by Li Wuyu. Try your effect. I hope it's the same as in the exercises. He took a deep breath, then took off his clothes and got into the tub. The black and red liquid medicine instantly envelopes the body. Li Wuyu's face suddenly tightened, and even became distorted. Because, he felt that the pores on the bottom of his body were opening uncontrollably. And it opened to an incredible degree. Almost torn. Then, the medicinal power in this black blood soup, like countless snakes, crazily drilled into the body along the pores. He felt his skin, muscles, and even his skin burst. What? Even though his heart is extremely determined, Li Wuyu still uttered a low roar like a beast. That feeling is really too painful. Patriarch, are you okay? The young man in Xingyi outside the house heard the movement in the house and asked nervously. I'm fine. Roll. Li Wuyu gripped the wooden wall of the bathtub tightly with both hands, and shouted coldly, no one can approach without my permission. Yes. Xingyi Ziyasi was terrified by the cold voice, and quickly retreated. In the room, the green veins on Li Wuyu's forehead are exposed. His face was tense, gritted his teeth. I want to live forever, why is this painful? Come on. He sounds like a demon. In a blink of an eye. 6 days have passed. During this period, Li Wuyu forcibly endured the pain and practiced extreme Dao Fa. 100 flowers are in full bloom in the courtyard. The burly figure looks like a dragon and a tiger, tumbling up and down. The half-moon scimitar in S hand was even faster as lightning, whistling. In the blink of an eye, his figure stopped in front of the humanoid pile, and the light of the knife sank into the stake. Boom! A low muffled sound came from the wood, and then the stake was directly shattered by the tyrannical strength. Sawdust is flying. Was scattered all over the ground. Even the flowers and plants not far from the stakes were shaken off by the agitated energy. In the middle of the day after tomorrow, 200 caddies of strength. Ji Dao Fa is well known. Li Wuyu has a happy face. Ji Dao Fa cultivation, although painful, and cost a lot of silver, but the progress is really against the sky. In just 6 days, from the early days of acquired to the middle of acquired. Even the most enchanting genius can't do it. Moreover, his skin, muscles, bones, etc., are obviously several times tougher than ordinary people. Li Wuyu has tried. Hits itself with a wooden stick as thick as an arm, and the stick will be broken by a back shock. But he didn't feel the slightest pain. Super ability to resist hits. When you really break through to the day after tomorrow's consummation, you will be invulnerable. At that time, the power of this physique will truly be revealed. Li Wuyu is looking forward to it. Patriarch, please see me in blue and white. Just when Li Wuyu was about to continue practicing, a soft and charming voice came from the arch of the courtyard. That bitch/person. Li Wuyu frowned. looked up, and saw that the Su family had twisted his enchanting posture and walked in. Today, she is wearing a bright red tight skirt, her exquisite figure is highlighted. Seems to have put on makeup on purpose. Looks dignified, but the eyebrows are full of temptation. Patriarch, what are you up to these days? I haven't visited me for several days. When King Hua entered the backyard, she had already withdrawn from the waiting servant, so she came to Li Wu's side with her hands wrapped around his neck without any reserve at this time. Exhale like blue. The brows and eyes halo like waves. Are you all right? Li Wu looked at her quietly, his voice indifferent. What are you talking about? King Hua moved her body closer to Li Wu, pursing her red lips, her beautiful eyes filled with resentment, and lightly hammered his chest and said, Nothing, can people not come to you? When you were not the master of the family before, you needed someone to help you win over the hearts of the people, and come here to be happy. Now, when you are the master of the Li family, you get what you want, and you don't need others, just so indifferent. You said you would treat people well, it's only been a few days, just. Speaking of this, Qing Hua's eyes are red. Tears rolled in my eyes. She really feels wronged. After all, she really likes Li Xingyun. And it took a lot of energy to help Li Xingyun win over the various branches of the Li family. Today, Li Xingyun is the head of the family, but his attitude towards her is very different. These days, I haven't even entered her courtyard once. It is my fault. Li Wu sighed slightly when he looked at the appearance of blue and white pear blossoms with rain. Do you know? People have lost a lot of time because they have missed what you think, and what they don't want to eat or drink in the past few days. King Hua heard Li Wu's words of apology, thinking that the latter changed his mind, and there was a hint of joy in her beautiful eyes. She knew that Li Xingyun was not the kind of ungrateful person. The latter must also really like myself. I will not use myself up, just abandon it like a shoe. The blue and white eyes are charming, and he gently pressed his cheek to Li Wu's chest. His voice was particularly seductive. Since you know that you are wrong, then you have to make up for others. Now, you have to wait until they are satisfied. At the end, the blue and white voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. A blush spread from the cheeks to the neck. Bright and moving. Although she had been married to Li Xingyun many times, it was Li Xingyun who took the initiative all the time. She is a deep-bowed lady, and she has been educated by the 3 obediences and 4 virtues since she was a child. It's a big face to be able to say such blatant and bold words. She was ashamed. But willingly. She hopes that she can grow old with the man in front of her. The descendants are full. You misunderstand me. Li Wu interrupted King Hua's random thoughts, then gently dragged the latter's chin, stared at her, and said coldly. What I said was wrong, because it made you feel that I would really treat you well. Let you have illusions about the future. Now, I have to change it and break your unrealistic fantasies. After finishing speaking, Li Wu suddenly raised his hand and pinched King Hua's neck. Then suddenly force. Crunch. The strength of 200 caddies is not something that a weak woman can bear. In an instant, blue and white felt a sharp pain in her neck. My breathing is stiff. She opened her eyes wide, staring at Li Wu, her face showed endless fear. There is still a thick can't believe it. You. How could she not expect that this man who used to talk witlessly and cherish himself infinitely would suddenly change like this? To tell you the truth, I never liked you. I just use you. I'll play with you by the way. You stupid bitch. Now, you have no use value, go back to your backyard obediently, and don't show up in front of me again. I can raise you to death like a dog. But if you don't know the face, don't blame me for being cruel. Boom. After finishing speaking, Li Wu threw out the blue and white that was turning blue. The latter smashed heavily into the flowers. Then, rolling out embarrassingly Jiangsu Zaiwen. The root thorns of flowers and plants poked her body, face, arms, blood stains. But she didn't seem to feel the pain. There is no pit. She was coughing. Yu reading www.yuyukanshu.com lifted her pale face, staring at Li Wu in a daze. Her eyes were dead grey. Yu. Her lips trembled and she was speechless. The blue and white at this moment is this feeling. A true heart pays wrong. From then on, the deep house is like a prison. Idiot. Li Wu looked at King Hua's miserable appearance and couldn't help but sneer. This is the result he wants. Originally he wanted to kill this woman who betrayed him. But then, he wanted to understand. Killing a person is not a real punishment. Makes her die better than life. The heart is like dead grey. Made her distraught. Let her live in regret, grief and resentment forever. Let her sink into the darkness. This is punishment. What? Li Xing, you are not human. Li Wu's sneer completely shattered the last trace of King Hua's reason. She suddenly grabbed her head, bloodshot in her eyes, and then roared hoarsely. At the same time, strands of black silk turned into white hair. She was forced to lose her heart mad. Come on. Li Wu didn't have any sympathy. He looked beyond the arch and ordered, bring this crazy woman back to her own yard. The gate of the courtyard is locked for me. No one can let her out without my permission. Don't talk to her. Give her 3 meals a day and serve her till death. Tsing Yiziasi hurriedly walked in. Seeing this, his face paled slightly. Revenge on the blue and white is just an act of Li Wu. He didn't take this woman in his heart at all. Now, in his heart, there is only Jidao Chongsheng. Time flies. Just over 10 days will soon be over. With the end of the 10th black blood soup soaking and refining, he finally broke through the day after tomorrow. Boom! At this moment, with the strength of 500 caddies in one arm, he can smash the stakes directly with his fist without using a scimitar. The violent energy shook all the sawdust to pieces. At the same time, the invulnerability he expected finally appeared. The surface of the skin becomes a lot rougher. Seems to have a layer of grey scales. Ordinary human energy, holding a knife and slashing on the body, will only leave a little white mark. Didn't hurt him a bit. Didn't even feel painful. This is equivalent to a diamond hood and an iron cloth shirt. It's just that I tend to be perfect in defense, attack, and even speed. Unlike those third-rate martial arts, I can only practice except for defense. Rubbish. After Li Wu assessed his strength, his face was full of joy. What makes him even more excited is that all these experiences have proved that Jidao Fa is feasible. 20 days, the day after tomorrow is perfect. Jidao Fa has realized this kind of things that people don't even dare to dream of. Then, immortality is certainly not vain. I want to go to the next one. Li Wu is full of expectations for the future. Began to study the extreme way of iron bones. Iron bone underworld. The practice method remains the same. However, the black blood soup was upgraded to the golden essence soup, and the number of soaking was increased to 20 times, with an interval of 3 days each time. Jinjing Tang Formula, Main Medicine, 300 years of golden hand aconite, Auxiliary Medicine, 30 years of flame grass, 30 years of. Outside the order, before the first soak, you need to use the broken body pill to open the physical body and govern the 2 channels. Formula of broken body pill, Main Medicine, 300-year-old twin lotus, Auxiliary Medicine, 50-year-old cordyceps sinensis, 20-year-old. Iron bones under the realm. Is the practice from acquired consummation to innate consummation, and the moves basically remain the same. Only the pill is changed. Li Wu probably scanned some of these herbs, and couldn't help but smile. He has been ill for many years and became a doctor. I know a lot about the prices of many herbs. The configuration cost of Jinjing soup is twice that of black blood soup, which is 10,000 taels. Soak the body 20 times. The total is 200,000 taels of silver. There is also a broken body pill, about 20,000 taels. This cost is really a bit expensive. Even though the Li family is the foremost rich man in Qinghe County, it's a bit difficult to spend so much money all at once. The survival of the Li family, what else can I do? Li Wuyu took a sip of tea and talked to himself indifferently. If I can live forever, it won't be difficult for me to create thousands of Li family. You can't let these mundane emotions block my way to the sky. Determined, Li Wuyu stood up abruptly. Come on. The little boy outside the door hurriedly appeared at the door. Has seen the new patriarch take care of Su's affairs, and he is already very jealous of the new patriarch. Go, buy one of the herbs on this list. The herbs on this list, buy 20 copies. Li Wuyu respectively handed the medicine lists needed for Podi pill and Jin Jing Tang to Xiao Si. Yes. Xia Shi didn't dare to hesitate at all, took the medicine order and quickly backed away. It costs so much money at once, some old guys, shouldn't they be able to jump out? Looking at Xiao Si's back, Li Wuyu sneered on his face. Li family, although most of the power is in their own hands, there are still factions in a big family. There are some people who usually don't show their mountains or do. When their interests are touched, they will stand up and bark. Never try to get in my way. Li Wuyu's eyes flicked through the cold light, and he said to himself, I don't care about the life and death of the Li family anymore, so how can I care about your elders? Click. The voice fell, and the celadone teacup in Li Wuyu's hand burst directly. 2 days later. Li family ancestral hall. 3 Li parents, 2 managers, and 7 or 8 people in key positions in the Li family are all gathered here. The new owner purchased a large amount of rare herbs, and he took out 80,000 taels just for the deposit. 10 days later, another 140,000 tael balance will be paid. This thing is too big. Even if the Li family has a wealth of wealth, it can't stand such a toss. The whole Li family was boiling. People invited the 3 Li family members together, wanting them to stop the new owner. Nebula is indeed too much this time. In the middle of the ancestral hall, under a few hundred spiritual tokens, is a thin old man in a grey robe. Beard and hair are all white. There are dense wrinkles on the forehead. Although he is very old, his eyes are brilliant. He is currently the most prestigious man in the Li family. Li Xiaozheng is the head of Li Wuyu's past. The martial arts talent was also good when he was young. After abdicated, he became obsessed with martial arts, and it seemed that he had reached the state of acquired consummation. Is the Dingai Shenzhen of the Li family. The 2 old men behind him on the left also has white hair and beard. But the actual age is a bit younger than Li Xiaozheng. Was also a figure who accompanied him in the birth and death of the Li family and made contributions. Now with Li Xiaozheng, he retreats in the countryside. However, the status of the 3 of them in the Li family is like 3 pillars, still as solid as a mountain. Because of their children and grandchildren, all the subordinates left behind now occupy an important position in the Li family. It can be said that Li Wuyu and Li Xingyun can be the masters of the house smoothly. Also got their acquiescence. Spending so much money at once, our Li family can't stand it. Li Xiaozheng shook his head slightly, swept past Mr. 2 and Mr. 3, sighed, and said, wait for him to come over, we 3 old guys, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com should persuade him. It is not easy for the Li family to have the foundation today, and it cannot be ruined. Mr. Big said yes. Mr. Er nodded slightly. Humph, I think this kid is the head of the family, I don't know, the sky is thicker. Mr. San had a bit more temper, and said coldly, you don't necessarily listen to the advice of these old guys. Li Xiaozheng frowned when he heard these words. Was silent for a while. He gently poked the dragon head cane on the blue stone slab, made a bang, and then smiled. It is normal for young people to be disobedient. The animal's wings are stiff, and I want to fly solo by myself. But if you learn a lesson, you will understand the truth. The sticks in the hands of our three old guys, aren't all the sticks still hard? They can beat him. Mr. Er nodded in agreement. Mr. San firmly squeezed the 3-iron in his palm and snorted coldly. Knock, it must be a knock. A junior in the early days of acquired, what else can it cause? I just complained. When the three of them were talking, a somewhat respectful shout came from outside. Patriarch is here. Li Xiaozheng, Mr. 2, Mr. 3, and several people in the ancestral hall all raised their heads at the same time. Looked towards the outside of the ancestral hall. A burly figure, with a broad shadow, walked into the ancestral hall. Seems to dim the surrounding light. 3 gentlemen, come to this ancestral hall with me, are there any problems? Li Wuyu swept across the 3 of them, his expression indifferent. Li Wuyu had long expected these 3 old things to stop him. So, nothing unexpected. He thought of a countermeasure anyway. The tone and attitude at this time, there is no need to pretend. Arrogant, arrogant. Clearly did not pay attention to Li Xiaozheng and others. Zing, I am calling you today, there is indeed something to do. Li Xiaozheng frowned. Obviously he was also dissatisfied with Li Xing's attitude, but he relied on his identity and did not care about Li Xing. I heard that you didn't notify anyone, you just spent more than 200,000 taels and ordered a lot of expensive herbs, this. Yes. Li Wuyu interrupted Li Xiaozheng and asked coldly. Is there a problem? I am the head of the Li family. I spend the money of the Li family, who do I need to ask for advice? Li Xing, what is your attitude? Before Li Xiaozheng could speak, the hot-impaired Mr. San got angry first. He slapped him on the table, leaving deep palm prints. Then scolded angrily, Mr. Da is your elder, you talk like that? Is there any respect? Mr. 3. Li Wuyu's face didn't change his face, he turned his head coldly, and hummed, I think you forgot one thing. I am the head of the Li family and the person with the most power in the Li family. I don't need to be inferior to anyone. Including a few of you. It's you, arrogant and rude to the patriarch, the family law should serve you. Boom. The voice fell, and Li Wuyu started directly. Anyway, he wants to use his strength to suppress these 3 old things. Then, talking nonsense at this time is meaningless. He is still anxious to go back to practice. Also don't want to waste time. Boom. The perfect outsider physique the day after tomorrow, with a punch of 500 jin. The air was shaking. Made a low whine. Everyone's complexion changed abruptly. They didn't expect that the new patriarch didn't agree with him, and he would directly attack Mr. San? Asshole! Mr. San looked at the punch that was in front of him instantly, his face was also alternated with blue and red, and he was extremely angry. He is the ancestor of Li's family. Is a respected existence wherever he goes. This kid, who has just been the head of the family for 2 days, dares to treat himself this way? It seems that I have to teach you a lesson, and let you know what the sky is. Mr. San's eyes are gloomy, and his muscles are tight. Crunch! The vigorous internal force circulated Zhou, and then gathered on the right fist. The 2 iron in the palm of the palm rub against each other because of the huge force, making a sour sound. This is Mr. San's famous martial arts. Hunyuan iron palm. 3rd-rate top grade. Is displayed with the strength of the latter part of the day after tomorrow, and the power is quite impressive. Has a huge force of 400 catties. Can destroy gold and stone. Get out of here. In the blink of an eye, the palm of the wind thundered and hit Li Wuyu's fist. At the same time, Mr. San's face also showed strong disdain. Dare to do it with yourself in the early days of the day after tomorrow? This is self-defeating. Boom. In the blink of an eye, his fists met. There was a muffled noise, and waves of air spread between the two of them. There is smoke and dust spreading on the ground. Mr. San feels that there is a huge force overwhelming the ocean, coming surging. Can't resist it at all. His complexion changed abruptly. You. Without waiting for him to speak in horror, Li Wuyu stepped forward, his fists thunderous. Boom! The violent energy directly crushed the internal strength of Mr. San, and then abruptly smashed him to his knees on the ground. Wow! The blue stone slab on the ground was also shaken with cracks. Hiss! This scene shocked everyone. Mr. San looked pale, his arms trembled by the tremendous force. Can't say a word. Li Xiaozheng and Mr. Er also had their eyes shocked. Can hardly recover. Everyone thought that Mr. Tu could easily crush each other. But the ending is quite a reversal. Later the day after tomorrow. After a brief silence, Li Xiaozheng took the lead in reacting. He squinted his eyes, staring at Li Wuyu like a falcon, and said in a dark voice, unexpectedly, you actually practiced foreign kung fu to the end of the day after tomorrow, which is unexpected. It is extremely difficult to practice foreign kung fu. Even if he has bones and blood, Li Xingyun would have to be over 40 years old if he wants to reach this point. Now he is only 17. Therefore, Li Xiaozheng and others can't believe it. But shocked does not mean scared. But do you think that by relying on these, you can do evil in Li's house, without respect? Li Xiaozhen's voice was abrupt, walking slowly towards Li Wuyu with a cane. You don't know how high the sky is. Never mind, the old man is too lazy to talk nonsense with your ungrateful and rebellious villain. Today, I will first abolish you, and then you will be abolished as the head of the house, and you will be locked up in the ancestral hall for the rest of your life. Boom! The voice fell, and Li Xiaozheng also shot. The seemingly thin body, at this moment, broke out with unparalleled energy. The day after tomorrow is perfect. The internal force is as strong as the ocean, and it can circulate the sun in the meridians. Besides, it can be vented outside. After he reached the state of consummation, he practiced another method of hurting people by internal force. Refers to Qing Yuan. Second-rate martial arts. This is also where he is confident that he can crush the opponent. The majestic internal force, instantly, gathered on the crutch. Then, with a sharp buzzing sound, he pierced the front door of Li Wuyu. Murderous intent is now. Old stuff, you really take yourself seriously. Li Wuyu sneered. Crunch! Clenched his right fist tightly, and then greeted him with the ultimate iron bone refining technique. Boom! The crutches poked his fist with sharp vigor. Muffled sound, vigor trembling. The blue stone slab at the feet of the two of them also cracked every inch of the shock. Faintly, there are stone chips rushing everywhere. As Li Xiaozheng had expected, the situation where Li Wuyu flew upside down, or in other words, the situation where his fist was poked into a bleeding hole, did not appear. On the contrary, the huge power seemed to roll over with thunder. Click! In an instant, the crutch burst. Then, Li Wuyu's fist stopped in front of Li Xiaozhen's face. The power is like mountains and seas. Snapped the ribbon around his hair. The grey hair is flying. Li Xiaozhen's face also turned pale. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. There is also fear. Even his hands were shaking. The day after tomorrow is consummation. Are you consummation outside? He felt like he was dreaming. 17. This guy has reached the realm of his 70s. What's even more terrifying is that what he cultivates is the most difficult foreign kung fu. Outer home is complete. How can this be? Is his talent so enchanting? There is also a dead silence in the hall. Several managers, important figures in the Li family, etc., were all dumbfounded. Each of them opened their mouths wide, and didn't even dare to show the atmosphere. And Mr. Er, who originally wanted to help out, shivered directly after hearing the words consummation from outside the house, and then backed away. Outer home is complete. Invincible in the same realm. He is the latter part of the day after tomorrow. Has no chance of winning. Time has almost stagnated. Li Xiaozhang felt the violent coercion on that fist, stalemate for about a few breaths, and finally couldn't hold it. The future of the Li family, the future, or something, is not as important as one's own life. He still wants to enjoy his old age. Patriarch, keep right and know what is wrong. He swallowed hard and spit, then, bending over, saluting, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Like Li Xiaozhang, Mr. 2, Mr. 3, and the rest of the people were afraid to continue. Bent down one after another. A few others even knelt down. Tomorrow morning, I want to see the herbs. Li Wuya coldly hummed. Li Ji's paintings have always been favored since childhood. Is almost a jewel of the Li family. Has never been said so. She couldn't accept it at all. Iwa, crying all the way, brought rain and ran back in front of Li Xiao. What's wrong? Li Xiaozhang saw the gesture of the great-granddaughter, and a hint of joy appeared in his eyes. Could it be that Li Xing did something? Now it's right. How could he be indifferent to such a beautiful girl? If you have an idea, you can. This way I can play by myself, and use Zhiwa to make him. Please comfort this girl first. Don't cry if you know the painting. If you have any grievances, tell your grandpa. Grandpa will be the master for you. Li Xiaozhang wiped away the tears of the girl with a spoiled face, and said softly, if he bullied you, Grandpa will fight this old bone and help you teach him. Li Zhiwa cried, while intermittently telling the story. That's it. Li Xiaozhang stared, a little dazed. Just cursed and didn't even let you in? Are you crying like this? Seems to be defiled by him? He almost slapped the girl out in anger. What an idiot! You really don't understand why I asked you to consult martial arts. Grandpa, go and teach him, let him give me. Li Zhiwa saw Li Xiao's face stiff, thinking that the latter was also angry, and grabbed his hand and said coquettishly. She must make Li Xing apologize to herself. But, before she finished speaking, Li Xiaozhang shook her off and shouted angrily. Get out! Get out of here! Grandpa, you! Li Zhiwa was suddenly sluggish. Didn't understand at all. In the next instant, her eyes were completely red, and she ran away with a wow. I don't know where I went this time. But Li Xiaozhang doesn't care at all. He frowned, stood in front of the door, and sighed deeply. Go away? It seems that he doesn't like the type of Zhiwa. Then what does he like? Could it be? Suddenly, Li Xiaozhang raised his brows. The matter between Li Xing and Su's blue and white, he naturally also knows. Does he like this kind of married woman? This, for the survival and development of our vein, those who should sacrifice have to sacrifice. Use something to send Zhiwa her mother over. Li Xiaozhang poked the crutches the ground. Li Wuya didn't even know, Li Xiaozhang wanted to give him another gift. In the past 2 days, he has been thinking about exercises. He thought of a possibility. Jideo longevity method is divided into the Jideo department and the longevity department. Refine the body and the soul respectively. Is it necessary to complement each other? The law of longevity. Li Wuya decided to try. So troublesome. After reading the general outline, Li Wuya frowned slightly. The cultivation of the longevity method is mainly to devour the 3 souls and 7 souls of others and merge them with one's own souls. Strengthen oneself. The process of phagocytosis and fusion has a special corresponding law decision, which is not difficult. The complicated part is the preparation process. Everyone has their own unique thoughts and memories. These things exist in the 3 souls and 7 souls. If you swallow it directly, you will merge these things into your own soul. This is a kind of pollution. If things go on like this, the devourer will be affected by too many modeled emotions, etc. Is easy to get lost and lose oneself. Therefore, before swallowing and fusing, the soul of the swallowed must be cleaned. This cleaning process is the most troublesome. Take enlightened law, the first part of the longevity ministry, as an example. This step of cultivation requires to swallow the smelly lungs among the 3 souls and 7 souls. This soul is the main desire. The way of cleaning is to first give the selected person who swallows the smelly lung pills. Under the action of the elixir, the stinky lungs of the swallowed person will gradually become active. His desires will become stronger and stronger. Almost lost control. Then, I started to help him realize his desires. When everything is satisfied, the stinky lungs of the swallowed person will swell to the limit. Finally, let's break everything. Gain and lose. This kind of huge impact, coupled with the medicinal effect of the smelly lung pills, will instantly wash away the smelly lungs of those who are swallowed. In this way, you can swallow and fusion safely and worry-free. It's really cumbersome. Li Wuyu rubbed his temples. Feed Dan, cultivate, then break, and finally absorb it. This is a very brainstorming thing. However, the effect it brings is extremely powerful. Entering the state of enlightenment, human perception will reach its limit. For example, I can easily see the difference between 2 glasses of water. I can see the slightest change in a person's expression, even if he hides it deeply. I can perceive the danger, the hostility and killing intent of others to myself, even if there is only a minute. The more direct benefit is that you can see the flaws in almost all martial arts. This is an unspeakable ability. Since I have embarked on this path, there is no reason to look back. Try it. Li Wuyu made up his mind. Her eyes flickered, and she started looking for a suitable candidate. Swallow the soul. Not everyone's soul can be. Also has a request. Enlightenment method requires the strength of the person being swallowed, at least reaching the end of the day after tomorrow, so that his soul is strong enough. Li Xiaozheng is good. This figure flashed in Li Wuyu's mind, with a smile on his face. He can even give away his own granddaughter, which shows that he has a strong desire for power and my current position can help him achieve it. Then choose him. Nodding slightly, Li Wuyu stood up. He needs to prepare the smelly lung pill first. 2 days later, Li Wuyu successfully refined the smelly lung pill. The formula of this pill is not difficult, and there are not many rare herbs. After all, it is only for people in the acquired realm. Will not be too advanced. This is a crimson pill. Yu reading www.yunshu.com. The surface is flowing, like flame lines. But when I placed it in my palm, I felt the slightest coldness. You have to figure out a way to give Li Xiaozheng. He gently shook his wrist, letting the smelly lung pill roll in his palm, his face thoughtful. At this time, there was a soft footstep outside the courtyard. Is the patriarch here? Shen Shiyuzhuo has something to see. Li Wuyu raised his brows. Shen Shiyuzhuo, he is also a little impressed. Is the wife of Li Xiaozhen's 3rd grandson and the wife of Li Zhihua. Is also somewhat famous in the Li family. She is in her 30s, but she is well maintained, her figure and skin are no worse than that of a 2-year-old girl. Plus that charming and intellectual face. Some charm, it's fascinating. Many people secretly envy the man who died of her. Tisk tisk. Li Xiaozheng, you really cooperate. Li Wuyu instantly wanted to understand the twists and turns. Li Xiaozheng first asked Li Ji to paint, but he was scolded by himself. Within 2 days, I sent Li Zhihua's mother over again. I want to come, because I think I like this type. After all, Li Xing's body had a relationship with Su's blue and white. Then, the plan can begin. Li Wuyu licked his lips and looked outside along the window. The delicate and charming woman stood there, a little cramped. He chuckles, in order to let Li Xiaozhang completely let go of his guard. You can only sacrifice some.